Hey everybody, welcome back.
Welcome to the show.
Today we are talking about Secret of Mana, and we are lucky to be joined by musical expert Chris Taylor.
Oh my gosh, who's that? Oh wait, no, it's me. Hello.
Yeah, we're very excited. We're very excited that there's an intelligent person here.
You're welcome for my presence, Russ.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, so without faffing about anymore, let's go ahead and move into personal history.
I mean, the personal history segments with me, I feel like are kind of boring because they're mostly just, I had this game when I was a child and I liked it and I played it again for, I don't know how many times this is now that I played Secret of Mana because it was one of my favorites when I was a kid. And I played it with my neighbor because you could play 2-player, you could hand another person a controller. And so I played it with my neighbor who I really didn't like. But I just liked having a player too while I was playing Secret of Mana.
So I got it for Christmas. I was super excited about getting this game. I saw it in Nintendo Power. It looked great. I was psyched to get it. I was so excited to get it Christmas morning. I didn't eat breakfast. And I ended up playing it all the way through lunch. And by that point, I was not feeling well because I hadn't eaten anything all day. And I was a little kid.
Yeah.
But what really shocked me when I started playing this, because I didn't know it, it was a sequel to the Final Fantasy Adventure, which I played so much as a kid.
I guess that was confusing back then.
Because all of a sudden it's talking about the mana tree, and I'm like, I know what that is. I know who that is. That's Rita, right? Rita's the mana tree from the name.
I know you name people Rita.
From Final Fantasy Adventure. So that was a really big deal to me.
Rita is like a Latina grandmother, but apparently that's what you named her character.
So this is the second game in what's called the Seiken Densetsu series in Japan, but funnily enough, it turns out Seiken Densetsu is an incredibly generic term in Japan. There have actually been several video games called Seiken Densetsu because it mostly translates to Legend of the Holy Sword, which is... You would use that for almost any fantasy story, right?
It's kind of like The Legend of Heroes.
It was released for the Super Nintendo by Square in 1993. It is now big enough that it does kind of own that term.
Yeah.
So Seiken Densetsu does generally mean this series now, even though it was a generic term to start with.
I also want to point out that my neighbor was a child and not like a creepy person that came over and played video games with me.
I appreciate that.
I've been thinking about that since I said it.
It was also, I don't know if I'm skipping ahead in your notes or whatever, but it was an interesting one because it was programmed by Nasir, which is a phrase that we in the U.S. had not seen since the original Final Fantasy.
Wow. Okay.
Because Nasir was a kind of a programming legend of the early days, and Square
brought is Nasir a person?
Yes, Nasir is a person.
I didn't know Nasir was
I can't remember
person.
His first name. I believe he's Iranian. I'm gonna look that up right now while they're talking about.
I've seen that all the time, and I thought that was a company or a group.
Nasir Gabelli.
Okay.
He's Iranian American. Actually, I misspoke.
Okay.
But yeah, he was a big deal back in like the Apple II days and stuff like that. And yeah.
Good job, Nasir.
Yeah.
You impressed me today.
Did you have personal history of the game that you'd like to share?
Oh God, yeah. I played this game back when it came out. My cousin actually got it, and he also his parents, I guess, were well off or something. I don't know, but he also got a multi-tap. So I actually got to have the 3-player experience of this game with my cousin and my sister.
Nice.
Sweet. Yeah. And we played all the way through it, and I've played through it many times since. And actually, when the PS4 remake came out, which I don't know if we're going to talk about, but I actually played it all the way through on the first day with 2 other people.
Well, we can talk about you're part of the discussion.
Yeah,
we can talk about anything you want to talk about.
Well, I just don't know if that's getting into the weeds because that remake's a whole thing.
Yeah,
we could talk about it. Innovation sounds like a good place for that. We'll address it.
For sure.
For now, let's go ahead and move on to story and characters. A young orphan pulls a rusty sword from the ground and becomes the ruler of all England. Yeah, all right, fine. Once again, an evil empire.
Excellent joke. Yes. We're all laughing heartily.
I'm hilarious. Once again, an evil empire is planning to steal the power of mana from the world, and it's up to this orphan to travel the world gathering power so he can prevent them.
You'd think that the thing you would want to prevent is evil empires.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Empire's always got to be evil. It's never it's never an empire of Care Bears.
Nope.
As is typical of a Super Nintendo JRPG, the runtime's about 25 hours, which feels short for how much memory or how much story I remember being in the game.
And intended to be much longer. It was intended to be part of that CD add-on to the Super NES, and it was intended to be much more story and many more dungeons that were cut.
Would you like to tell us about the characters, Russ?
Yeah, I mean, the characters are a boy and a girl and a sprite.
When I was a kid, I could never figure out the sprite's gender.
I don't think you're supposed to know. I mean, I think it's a sprite.
And in fact, in the remake, they changed them to non-binary.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So sprite is they, them in the remake.
I named the sprite Russ. I didn't know
that
what else to do with it.
fits.
Yeah.
So
What did we name
I
it?
would be the sprite.
I think we named it Sprite.
No. I only remember this is Don't Cry for Me is how I'm gonna preface this story. But I played this not only with my neighbor but my dad, who I'm not gonna get super personal on this podcast, but isn't part of my life anymore, and he had me name the girl after the woman he cheated on my mom with.
Wow.
Which again, I'm saying don't cry for me, like I just laugh at that now.
But it's pretty funny though.
But I
actually,
didn't know, like after they got divorced and he introduced me to his girlfriend, and she had the same name as what he had me name the girl in Secret of Mana, and that was like a trip for a 12-year-old.
So the boy's
This
pretty
is a
much
funny story, not a sad story.
the boy is pretty much a blank slate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the girl is the sassy princess tomboy type.
Yeah. She's not literally a princess, but she has that personality.
Yes.
And she also has this other personality trait that I've been able to find in other video games, and in fact, I named this trait after her. Well, her default name that we were never given in the U.S. was Prim.
Yeah, which I love when I found that out.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
But I call it the Prim complex, and that's where she worships this dude who is off camera, and you're like spending your entire game like with her like trying to find this guy, and like
Dialogue.
yeah. And in the remake, there is so much more dialogue about how great Diluc is, even though he is perpetually off camera.
Yeah.
And you see that sometimes in JRPGs where a female character is defined by, she's badass, but she is actually chasing an off-screen man who is even more badass, and you just won't believe how great he is. You just got to meet him. And then, of course, he comes back as like a bad guy or something.
Every time. That's the only way it's interesting, right?
Yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles, that's Sharla.
Yeah.
Because Charlotte's always chasing after her dude, and like he shows up, and believe it or not, he's not as cool as you thought he was. Yep. So yeah, I call that the Prim complex.
Yeah, that's good.
I invented that trope though, but feel free to run with it.
And there's also a cat person that you run into throughout the world.
Yep.
Neko the shopkeeper.
Yeah, I do like cat people.
I didn't know that Neko was the Japanese word for cat, so I actually just thought it was like Nico.
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
Like an NICO type of name that they just spelled weird. So I always called it Nico.
Watts the blacksmith is back. He was in the first game as a companion, and obviously it's not the same one. So the secret of the Mana series is not direct sequels. They're more like Final Fantasy in that they're thematic sequels, right? It's not the same evil empire. It's not on the same planet. But it's the same themes occurring again and again about the Tree of Mana and trying to protect it. So it's not the same Watts. Just like in Breath of Fire, it's not always the same Nina.
Yeah, although it is. Well, it's not the same Nina, but those games actually do take place in the same
The first
universe.
two do. I think the third and fourth are their own thing. I'm not sure. When I actually play them, we'll find out.
Well, you played two of them.
I played 1 and 2, and they do take place in the same universe.
True. Okay.
Are there any other notable characters that we want to call out? Santa Claus is in this one.
Santa Claus is.
Fana.
Yeah, Dialek and Fana are the other characters who, again, I think we're intentionally supposed to have a bigger story and a bigger part in that game, but they disappear
And then
Well, Fana does, and then Dialek comes back right at the very end, and you're like, who is this weirdo?
and there's a whole cast of bad guys that you just never meet until you're right about to fight them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those. I'd like a little more backstory, please. No.
And I want to know more about the Scorpion Army.
Yeah.
They were so cool and like funny, but it's like, who are they and what are they
Right.
doing?
They're all those cool looking generals, and then they just stand there
Yeah.
for like one scene.
And then you kill Santa. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the combat system.
And Moogles. Sorry.
Yeah, nope.
I had to point out that there were
There's
Moogles.
definitely Moogles.
Yeah.
There's moogling as well as a verb
There is. Yeah.
because you get moogled.
You get Moogled in combat.
There you go.
So, like Final Fantasy Adventure, it's live action combat. It's not
It's
turn-based.
action. Exactly.
There's a percentage bar, again, that builds up at the bottom, except in Final Fantasy Adventure, the bar at the bottom built up to a super attack.
Yeah.
In Secret of Mana, it builds up to your ability to do a decent regular attack.
Yeah.
If you attack without the bar being full, you're doing maybe 1 damage or you're whiffing a lot. So it's a lot of strike, dodge, weave, strike, dodge, weave.
Yeah.
And
then to
sometimes
do-
charging up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, to
based
do
on
your
your
super
weapon
attacks, you
level,
have to
yeah.
charge up, which is always a bit of consternation for me because I'm like, why would you ever do that when you can just swing your sword over and over again?
I don't know the point of building up to like a level 5 attack
Yeah.
because that takes all day
Yeah.
of dodging, weaving, building up to a 5, and then you could miss.
Yeah.
But level 1, level 2 I would use. But yeah, the weapons level up the more a particular character uses them. And you can then hold down the attack button to charge up a very, very slow meter to use power attacks.
And
Yeah.
of course, you can't level it over the level that the weapon itself is.
Yeah.
So you can't learn a level 4 move on a level 3 spear, for instance.
Yeah, you work with watts to level them up as you find spheres
Which-
throughout the world.
Kind of gives you like a good incentive to rotate the weapons constantly,
Yeah.
if you want.
Yeah. Some of the, well, that's more innovation, but some of the weapons also have navigation purposes.
Yes.
The whip can get you
Yeah.
across chasms, and the axe can get rocks out of your way and stuff like that. When I play this game, I always cheese the spells.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
You gotta.
The diamond missiles.
Yeah.
That is how I play the game because I even as a kid I learned the timing where you could cast it at just the right moment in the animation, cast the next round of it over and over again, and it would stun lock the enemy
Yeah.
until you used up all your MP.
Which is fair to do because the enemies, especially some bosses, can do it to you, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is pretty much how I went through every boss fight, unless they weren't unless they were resistant to the gnome spirit.
And this game very much had that thing because you could only carry 4 of each item, so your MP healing items were only 4, so you basically always had to like save all your spells for the boss and just spam it all on
Which is how I tend to play JRPGs anyway.
Right, this game is very much like it guides you to doing that for sure.
That is all I have for combat system. I don't have any more notes for the combat system. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here staring, hoping somebody will say something.
The rabbits are cute. I like the little rabbits.
The enemy designs are good,
The enemy
actually.
designs are good.
That's
Thank
a,
God.
they have a thing that I like to call too cute to kill.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's
The mushabooms.
mushrooms, yeah. Everything in that game is too cute to kill. Even the goblins are cute.
They are.
Even when they're putting you in a stew pot.
Yeah.
Just the whole look of the game overall it's a very cute looking game.
The characters are expressive. They did like the expressiveness they had in like Chrono Trigger and like Final Fantasy VI. I feel like kind of started here.
Well, let's go ahead and move into innovations. So, like has been mentioned a couple times now, it's a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
You can actually play typically 2, but if you had the fancy multi-tab,
Right. If you were rich.
I didn't, but my cousin did.
you could have other players controlling your party of 3 people at the same time,
Yeah.
which almost no JRPGs are multiple player.
Right.
And certainly the 3-player ones are rare indeed.
Yeah.
It has a very quirky sense of humor, which I always enjoy.
It did innovate canon travel as a primary
Yes.
use of intercontinental transportation.
Right.
And that's the system we use now today, and it started with Secret of Mana.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
When Russ and I go to Japan, that's how we're going.
It's going to be by canon.
I don't have it.
I mean, I feel
Oh,
like you're
okay.
going to say something else, but okay.
So-
I feel like we really are on Delicious Dish now. With lots of silence.
Was this actually the, because I know Final Fantasy IV had kind of a version of it, but the way that like Mode 7 worked with travel with like the dragon and stuff, like this might be the first game that kind of did that, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, Final Fantasy didn't have Mode 7 till 6, I believe. Final
Yeah.
Fantasy 4 and 5 were...
Well,
It kind of did. When you got
well,
the airship, it turned into Mode
yeah.
7, but it stayed on a flat
it
plane.
did, that's true.
Whereas this had more of the scaling and rotating that were
Yeah.
like that were, you know, used more in 6 and stuff.
That's
So
very
that
true.
was pretty innovative.
this would also be a good chance to talk about the PlayStation 4 remake.
Oh yeah.
I didn't play it, so I did play this game again when it came out with the Mana Collection.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like the PS4 remake I played with a couple friends, and yeah, we just did like this kind of 24-hour straight out playthrough that lasted all weekend, and so we took a couple of breaks. It was so weird because it is almost note for note the game, but all the graphics are proper 3D now, and some of the glitches are gone. But also, like, because we played it opening weekend, it crashed the PS4 constantly.
Oh.
So we'd go for, like, an hour and just expect to crash. So we had to, like, save a lot. One of the interesting things about it, too, is that so whenever you go to visit an inn, instead of just straight up going to sleep like you normally do, like the little sleep animation, often where the character sprite is actually halfway out of the bed.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, it goes to a cutscene where the 3 characters actually have a dialogue about what has just happened in the game. Here's the thing. The game doesn't know to skip one of those stories if you didn't go to an inn at that point. Therefore, we were at the end of the game, and the characters are still talking about Santa Claus in our game.
Yeah.
And in those little dialogues, too, like almost every other one was Prim talking about how great Diluc is. So it's such a meme if you play through the PS4 version to like talk about how amazing and great like Diluc is in every sense of the word. She compares every other character to Diluc. It's ridiculous. But I thought it was really fun, and I actually quite enjoyed the remade soundtrack, which I guess we'll get to. But yeah, it was remade by Yuzo Koshiro mostly. And so, like, one great composer taking another great composer's work and changing it. Of course, people complained, but I thought it was really nice. So,
Well, speaking of, unless anybody's got more innovations they want to talk about, we
Yes.
can go ahead and move into music. Chris has been waiting for this.
because this is the one I know.
Before Chris takes off, because I know he's going to. I know he's going to do the bulk of the lifting. This is one of the few games where if I stop and think for a second, I can hear the soundtrack in my head. And music doesn't normally stick with me. But I can hear various themes of this song if I just think about they are in my memory. The entire soundtrack has a very ethereal quality to it, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now Chris is going to run.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the Secret of Mana soundtrack is possibly one of the most iconic in the Super Nintendo era of JRPGs, which is one of the most iconic of JRPGs in general. So yeah, we're talking like best of the best kind of soundtrack here. The entire thing was made by one guy, Hiroki Kikuta, who he had worked on a couple things prior to this and a couple things after, but I mean this is like really his peak, I would say. Arguably Seiken Densetsu 3, but whatever. Not only did he create this soundtrack, he created the sound files and samples that he actually used to build the soundtrack. So it's like if you made like a great Lego sculptor or a great Lego design, but you also built each Lego.
Okay.
That's how this guy made this soundtrack. And
I'm sure someone on YouTube does that.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
But and one of the big actually interesting things about this soundtrack is, and it's really it's hard to talk about without also mentioning this, but because of just the way the game itself was built, there is an instance where anytime you're like going up and down stairs, for instance, it cuts out a major part of the soundtrack. So not only will you have the entire soundtrack in your head once you've played this game, you'll also be able to hear, like, for instance, the Dwarf Town theme without, like, the percussion because of going downstairs and just hearing that, instead of, like, a big part of the actual song.
That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that. Learning.
Yeah, because Super Nintendo games had 8 sound channels that were each kind of tied to, like, this certain thing in the programming, whatever, I don't know at that point. But, that can be sort of like one of those channels can be like kind of nullified by other sound effects that are going on. Sometimes they can be cleverly programmed around, but like since those same 8 channels are handling the sound effects as well as the soundtrack, in certain games that there's like little overlooked things, that's gonna happen. Anyway, the songs themselves. So it's funny because I'm not going to be using the proper titles of the songs to talk about them because I don't know them. Like, for some reason, this official soundtrack renamed all of the songs to, like, things that I don't know, like, A Bell is Tolling, A Curious Happening, and, Did You See the Ocean is the name of a song.
I did see the ocean. Thank you for asking.
I closed my eyes, so it's got, like, all these titles and stuff that I can't really go off of, so I'm just gonna... But yeah, you will know right away that, like, when you load up this game that it's got something kind of unique going on because, like, the opening kind of funk track with, like, the hand claps and stuff that open up the actual story, like, I don't think there's anything else that sounded like that on the Super Nintendo at that point. And when you get to the first boss fight, it's just, the music there is almost terrifying. It's actually called Danger. And it's just this frenzy of notes that I actually I met Hiroki Kikuta one time at a MagFest, and I told him, because this is true, that I someday want to cover that song, the boss theme from Secret of Mana, on real instruments. I told him this through a translator, of course, and he laughed and then said that I was going to die.
Now, are we sure he was saying that in reference to what you just said, or was he just threatening you?
I think he was saying it in directly, because he laughed as soon as the translator told him what I said. And then, he very much wrote these songs not to be played by real human hands. And you can hear that in certain songs, like there's actually the ending credits theme is called Second Truth from the Left. And it has a slap bass solo in it that is impossible. And it's so, like, it's funky and joyful and all this other stuff, and actually influenced by my favorite band, Gentle Giant, which is a progressive rock band of the 70s that I know that Kikuta also enjoys. And he actually threw a Gentle Giant reference in there. It references a song called 2 Weeks in Spain. Very deep trivia there, that's a deep cut in every way. But yeah, every theme that you come on, you hear the acoustic guitars of, like, the, when you enter in, like, these pastoral areas where, you're fighting rabbits and stuff, and everything's so peaceful. And it's, like, it's not only acoustic guitars, it's double flutes. It's, like, vocal backgrounds and things like that. And it's just, like, any scene that is underscored is just done up to, like, 11. Because, like, when you enter, like, the haunted areas or, fighting, what's his name, Thanatos, or is it Thanos?
Thanatos.
Thanatos, yeah. Mixing everything up. Thanatos' boss theme towards the end of the game also has one of the creepiest songs, like, I think in the Super Nintendo library. It's just, like, these heavy scratches that don't sound like an instrument at all. It just sounds like scratching, like, something terrible. And, still with, like, vocal choral, type of things and just, like, these, diminished intervals and stuff like that. It's so effective. And then, like, as soon as, you get to the last boss and it's Meridian Dance, I think is what it's called. And that is, like, just this funky prog, like, craziness that's, it all sticks in your head because it's all super well made and kind of informed, I think, mostly by progressive rock. And yeah, my list of favorites in this is so long, I'm not even going to go into those.
It took me forever to figure out how to fight that in boss as a kid, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and, even
as an adult, when I was replaying it for this, I barely squeaked. Like, my last possible hit killed it. And I was like, oh, God.
Yeah, they didn't explain that super well. At least they explained it somewhat. But yeah, you had to like figure out to cast a spell with Sprite and cast a spell with Prim.
Yeah, both of the other party members had to cast the sword spell from Dryad, which I never used Dryad in the game, so it was super weak.
Right.
They both had to cast it, and then you could actually hurt the end boss until one of the castings ran out.
Yeah, exactly. And then
you run out of mana, that's it. You can't win.
Yeah, hopefully you have walnuts.
Exactly.
Anyway, sorry. That wasn't music related, but
that's okay. It's walnut related, and walnuts, you find out, are the most important food group of this entire game.
That's true.
But yeah, no, I mean, I can go on all day. Like I said, it's a massive soundtrack, and every piece just has like a lot of meaning to it, and I think that actually really comes out, including like certain songs that people would deem like, I don't know, irritating, like the Dwarf Town theme.
I like the Dwarf Town.
I love the Dwarf Town theme, but people are like, it's so nasally. I was like, that's the other thing, is that like the soundtrack for the most part is like so joyful and kind of bouncy that it so super fits a game where you walk into any store and the storekeeper's just doing this jig, like just dancing constantly.
I do enjoy that they're always dancing, all the merchants.
And I like that they're also dancing even when the town's problem hasn't been fixed yet, so it's got the sad theme.
They are still busting moves.
Yeah, they're just like, yeah, oh yeah, gotta dance.
Get it.
And actually, I'm going to do one more piece of trivia and then stop talking about the music.
Okay.
Somebody asked Hiroki Kikuta in a, what do you call those things that we used to have back in the before times? Panel.
Yeah, a panel.
They asked him in a panel what his personal favorite song that he made for that game was. And he actually wrote this song with the intention of it being the overall theme for the Sprite character. And it is used once in a scene with the Sprite character. But what it became was the what's the desert town? Kakaro? Yeah. When you save Kakaro Village and it has this da 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 da, like this really happy song. Mm-hmm. That apparently is Kikuta's favorite song that he wrote for that soundtrack, and everybody was like, "What?" Because it sounds, it's just like it's tuned percussion and like xylophones and stuff like that. It's a cool little ditty, but it's like, it's not Meridian Dance or Second Truth from the Left or Danger or... No, okay.
All right, so we'll move on to...
Music is good.
Music good.
Yeah. It is very memorable. It sticks in your head.
Is.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me out here to say music is good.
It's what we do.
It's up there with Chrono Cross as like a soundtrack that really stood out to me, a person who normally doesn't pay attention to the music.
For real. And also that Chrono Cross, another game with a tricky final boss.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Even trickier.
Let's go ahead and move on to final thoughts.
Final thought is that this is the worst game that I've ever played. I'm just kidding.
So that was your turn for a really funny joke, because I had mine at the beginning.
You did. Yeah, we bookend this show.
Okay.
No, I love it. I mean, this is definitely an A game for me. I don't know if it's A+, just because there's not as much nostalgia attached to it. I did play it with that neighbor that I didn't like, who was a child. I feel like I have to say that again.
Problem is you were 30 at the time.
Right. I was the creepy adult. No, I wasn't. Yeah. So no, I do like this game. Like I said, the music stands out for me like it does with Chrono Cross, or something like Streets of Rage. And I like the combat.
I also would give it an A. And again, the only thing that stops it from being an A+ is there's so much magic that you don't use. There's so much inventory management because of the limited inventory. Mm-hmm. Those two things kind of get in the way.
And once you know that the game was supposed to be bigger, I feel like I see the story where parts of the story and dungeons and things were cut out. I feel like I see that.
But it's still a great game.
It's still a great game.
Still an A game. Chris?
I give it an A too. I think that it really was the weakness of localization kind of hurt it a little bit. There's so many characters that I really wanted to know more about, but especially in the villain cast, like I said, but they were only just brought in like briefly. And it's like we talk so much more about dialogue than any of these jokers.
Exactly.
No, like the music really, and the graphics too. I actually really love the look of this game too. Like all of that just propels it to just this fun, great adventure that's still fun to play now. It was fun to play then. Weird that they included it on the SNES Classic, even though there's no way to play it 3-player.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I'm really glad that it's like getting new life and stuff. Like I really, truly enjoy this game a lot.
Yeah.
Russ, if they want to play Secret of Mana, how can they play it?
They can play it on the SNES Classic. That's one way.
Easiest way, really.
Yeah.
Super
Probably
simple.
at this point. I don't think it's on Virtual Console on Switch or anything. I mean, they can play that.
But you know what is on the Virtual Console?
What is on the Virtual
The
Console?
collection of Mana.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's true. I can't believe I forgot about that. Or you can play the remake version of it.
Yeah, which is on PC and PS4, I
It's on
believe.
PS4.
Yeah.
And Switch too, I think.
I don't know if they fixed those problems with it crashing, but I'm sure they have by now.
Yeah. I also
right.
want to mention the duck. I didn't say anything about the duck.
yeah.
That's my favorite enemy, is the duck with the little soldier
Oh,
helmet
yes. Yeah, they're from Final Fantasy Adventure. Like that duck
Yeah,
carried over.
And they borrowed them for Suikoden 3.
So for quick plugs, I'm going to say check out the TV show For All Mankind on Apple Plus TV. Surprisingly good show. The premise of it is, what if Russia won the space race and landed on the moon first, and so America never stopped trying in space because we couldn't be second place. It's really fascinating. By the second season, we have a fully functional moon base. The third season is going to be set in the 90s on Mars. So it's just really interesting. I like the idea of alternative history. And the characters and the writing on this are just great. There's a lot of real hard feels. So I recommend that
Maybe I'm from the alternate universe because I grew up on Mars in the 90s.
one. That makes sense.
And
Russ,
then I was brought here like Peter on Fringe.
do you have something you would like to plug?
I'll plug, I guess, a show. I'll plug Midnight Mass on Netflix.
What is Midnight Mass?
Midnight Mass is a show about religion and vampires and economic struggles on a small island in the Pacific Northwest. And it is a very slow burn, but it is very good. And it stars some great people, including Rahul Kohli, who was great in iZombie and plays the sheriff in this show. And he's great in this show, and it's very great Muslim representation.
All right. Chris, what have you got?
Well, I guess I'm going to be a selfish barstool and just plug myself again.
Go for it.
I am on Twitch 5 nights a week, Wednesday through Sunday, at Liar Exaggerate, like the neighbor on Earthbound, LIERXAGERATE. I guess you could call me Lear Exagerate if you really want to. Some people do.
I had no idea how to say that.
When I was a kid, I didn't get the joke.
Exactly,
I
yeah,
had
the
no
E throws
idea.
it all off.
Yeah.
I thought it was Lear Exagerate for a while, and then I was like, I like this character. And then I finally realized, oh, Liar Exaggerate.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Actually, though, people in my community have taken to calling me Lier. Probably also due
That
to
is
the
fancy.
hat. Yeah. But yeah, I'm on there. I play classic games, sometimes new games. It just depends, but usually it's big series playthroughs like Kirby and Zelda and Dragon Quest currently. So that's where you can find me.
All right. And next time we are playing the classic, the much beloved, the much talked about. Really, the game that needs no introduction and no review. Thousand Arms.
That one, my favorite.
We'll see you then.
Home on the RNG is a presentation of Mad Centaur Productions. You can find Jeff on YouTube at youtube.com/Centaur Productions or on Twitter at Jeff Centaur. You can find Russ on Twitter at RussMac25. You can find Chris on Twitch at twitch.tv/LiarExaggerate or on Twitter at EnrichFlavor. Thank you for listening, and remember to save your game before powering off this podcast.